Are the banks about to collapse? Well, I'm going to show you in today's video what the FDIC is preparing for. Buckle up.
I ain't gonna give in now, I think I gotta live this now. I be gonna beam and I'ma kill this stuff real quick. I'ma go take it to town, cause I gotta be that king in their beam. And I'm not getting mad when I'm back with the whip, cause I am just up on the journey. Just know that I'm just going insane.
Warriors, rise. Grand rising, good evening, warriors all over the world. My name is Coach JB, and I'm going to take you on a journey of what the FDIC is preparing for. Before I start this video, this is not financial advice. You should not make any moves based on this video. This is not a scare tactic. It's to educate you from things that are publicly available for you on the FDI website. This is not hidden from you. It's in plain sight. They clearly put it on their website for us to watch. So all I'm going to do is present information to you for you to make an informed decision on your own. Now you're going to hear things like, should we inform the public? No, we shouldn't. So I'm just going to share with you guys the information that you all have access to. Now down in the description down below, I know the first thing people are going to ask is, where do I find this? I'm going to put a whole list of all the videos. The FDIC allows the public to watch all of these meetings. Now, I watch these meetings. I watch Fed meetings. I watch the World Economic Forum meetings. And that's what I spend 8 to 9 hours a day doing, researching, so you don't have to. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down this video, okay? But first thing I want to show you is where America is sitting. So this is the U.S. debt clock, and I want to show you something pretty dramatic that's changed very quickly over the last 12 months. Okay, do you guys remember they were printing more money than they've ever printed before since 2006 all the way to 2021? Well, I want you to notice something here. We're at 31 trillion, our national debt, and we're sitting at 120% debt to income ratio. America basically has more debt than they do actual products, goods, and services. Okay. I want you to notice something as well. You remember they were printing trillions of dollars? Well, if you look down here where my mouse is at, notice the US M2 money supply is now going backwards. So the money supply is going down and the credit is skyrocketing. So if you were less money was coming into your account, I just want you to think about this for just a moment. If less money was coming into your account and your credit was stacking and you couldn't pay for your debt anymore and you had to borrow money to pay for things, what would that be considered? Bankruptcy. So as we go through this, I want you just to think about what I'm saying and just listen to the FDIC, and then I'll narrate this for you. Now, the first thing I want to show you is this is the actual resource right here in the description of this video. All these resources will be there. Okay, so you can go watch these videos yourself. Okay, the FDIC tells us it's open to the public. All I'm doing is showing you information that is not hidden from the public. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, because there's a video I'm about to show you. I'm going to show you the full context of it. This is going to be a long video. I know it's going to be boring, but you need to hold on for the ride. Okay, I'm going to narrate it because there's a viral clip going around, but people don't give context of what's actually going on. People just post viral clips on TikTok and YouTube and on Twitter. So people just hear one part of it, but let's hear the broad paintbrush. So banks are in a liquidity crisis. Central banks are in a liquidity crisis. Central banks are stacking gold right now. Wells Fargo is connected to R3, which is real-time payments, okay, on-demand liquidity. It's a blockchain. JP Morgan started Onyx, their own cryptocurrency. You have JPM coin, a cryptocurrency. When they tell you cryptocurrency is a fraud. Bank of America is connected to Ripple. Ripple is actually in their patent. Okay, so this is the website here, but I'm going to show you something pretty remarkable that a lot of people missed with this viral video. So this is the beginning of the actual 3-hour meeting that I dissected for about 24 hours straight. Okay, so I want you to see something critical. Now let's back up just a moment. 2020. There was a case that was put against Ripple from the SEC. Jay Clayton sued Ripple for trading Xrp as a security. Jay Clayton left the SEC to go consult for a cryptocurrency fund. And you're about to have your mind blown. Guess who just joined the board of the FDIC? Pay attention.
We've been joined by several other distinguished new members. This will be their first meeting. Jay Clayton, the former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Margaret Tayar, partner and co-head of financial institution.
So this meeting that's going viral, nobody caught this part, but Jay Clayton Jay Clayton, the former head of the SEC, just joined the board for the FDIC. You're probably wondering what the FDIC is. Many of you know that. If you're, you understand banking, is FDIC insures your deposits. Their job is to make sure that the depositor is protected. They protect each deposit into a depository account up to $250,000. The videos you're about to watch is a little alarming, okay? So Jay Clayton is now on the board for the FDIC. Ex-SEC Chair Jay Clayton joins Crypto Investment Electric Capital as an advisor. So he consults for cryptocurrency funds as the former SEC chairman. And now he's sitting on the board of the FDIC. So this video I just showed you right here where they announce him is the same video that's going viral, the 3-hour-long video. So I'm going to start this video at minute 1 hour and 6 minutes. And you're going to have to bear with me. We're going to watch through this. I need you to listen to what they're saying. This was done in somewhere around November or December. I think it was November or December, this meeting in 2022, where you're preparing for the holidays. This is what the FDIC was meeting on, around banks and bail-ins, not a bailout. A bail-in is very, very different. So hang on for the ride.
Both the authorities, they're very broad authorities, and we don't know where the ends, the boundaries are fully drawn yet. I mean, there is some parameters that companies would have to meet, but we're in a dynamic environment. And then as far as what the decisions are going to be made at the time, there's going to be several parties involved, and they're always going to have their own perspective. And we'll have to deal with those facts and circumstances at that time. It's hard to plan for that. We do hold conversations, though, with all the key turners to make sure everybody understands their roles and talk about issues. But it's difficult.
I want to maybe try to tie together Gary, Jay, and Sandy's comment, because I do believe that this challenge of how to prep for the future, not fight last year's war, right? It's kind of a perpetual challenge. The exercises that were talked about earlier are really valuable. They are extremely time intensive, and you have to pick wisely. And I think this is one of the challenges, is like, where do you drill? And if you pick that spot, then if you miss, then you expended a huge amount of resources. So I think that does argue for something a bit more modular, smaller, faster, more nimble. What exactly that is, I think we really need to put some thought into how to do that. Because I think that is because I think the environment requires it, because the change is happening much more quickly, and things are not contained within the 4 walls of the bank anymore. And so I think that does require kind of a bit more creative thinking on that front. It would be interesting to know what other industries do, kind of what's best practice out there. That's something that I think, kind of the collective knowledge of folks at this table and your friends have probably some insight into. So that may be something to kind of think about and pursue in the future. Thanks.
May I just observe, this is really a pretty engaged group here. So, and I'm looking at the clock in our agenda this morning, and maybe perhaps move to our second agenda item. And I think all of these issues continue into the next, so it's not as if we're leaving them behind.
Okay, so this is where it gets deep. Okay, pay attention. Get your pen and paper out. Okay, clear your mind and listen. So this is all on the website. This is all public for you guys. Okay, as you look this way, there's always another narrative going on this way.
But I actually think these next topics will engender further conversation around these issues. John, if that's reasonable.
No, I think you're absolutely right. We're actually naturally leading into the next panel. So why don't we? Thank you. And our next panel, which is going to be the resolution planning update, as we noted, Title II and public transparency and large bank resolution planning. And we will have Deputy Director for Resolution Readiness, Ryan Tetrick, advisors Betsy Falloon and Susan Baker, and our legal counsel, Penn Stark. Presenting.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Betsy Falloon. I'm a senior advisor in the Resolution Readiness branch, and I'm here to introduce our Title II topic for today. And Chairman and John have mentioned that what we're interested in here is to talk about transparency and ways that we can tell the story of the way we are planning and the way we intend to approach a Title II resolution in a way that enhances everybody's understanding of it and improves confidence in the process and the outcome. At this point, there's a pretty broad awareness of the single point of entry strategy. I think that people are aware of that approach to resolution, which is the one that we think is the most effective. And a lot of steps have been taken to make that approach more actionable, more available in a wider range of scenarios, both in a Title II planning area, but in Title I as well. The firms have taken steps and the agencies as well to improve the firm structures or capabilities. And the single point of entry strategy is now a credible option in a much wider range of scenarios.
Okay, so I'm going to actually show you, don't worry, the documents. I'm going to show you what they're talking about in their Title II plans.
The planning work in Title I has certainly had a lot of benefits in our Title II readiness as well. And, sort of the talk about the firehouse or the standing army, that routine of the resolution planning also helps us because there's always new information and new plans, and we are building upon our planning as the firms build upon their planning. So, over the course of my career, I have seen where resolution planning has become a truly full-time, year-round job, which is way different than in the early years where we came in and out. In good times you do deals, and in bad times you do resolution.
Boom, key. Good times you do deals, and bad times you're doing resolutions. They're doing a resolution right now.
And so we recognize that this is hard, and comments have been made about how it's hard to know exactly what to be ready for, and we certainly know that being ready for the last crisis is not the answer, although certainly also we need to have learned from the last crisis and remember those lessons and keep that muscle memory, but at the same time not be trapped by the expectations of the past. As I mentioned, we use the Title I plans as a foundation for our resolution analysis in Title II. And in Title I reviews, we are now using capabilities testing more so that as part of our Title I review, so to validate the capabilities that the firms have described in their plans and the capabilities that we rely on in Title II for our readiness. Arlen was mentioned, and that's certainly a capability that we think about a lot in Title II readiness, as well as in understanding, the risks associated with the Title I plans. We have a systemic resolution framework that we have built out, which is sort of our roadmap for how we think about Title II execution. And we've been working, at this point, we're building in details, we're building in templates, we're trying to make this framework an actionable set of steps. And an important part of that is internal tabletops and exercises. We do we try to do a lot of that, both, the high investment, high yield ones, where if we get it right, it's really good. And we've had a few of those. And also we try to look for opportunities where we have, low cost exercises. We call them pop X's, but we, just a quick, not a lot of build up. How would you do it if this happened? Take this firm, take this scenario, send some staff and go. And those are ways that we can, I'm not going to say build muscle memory because it's not quite true, but create the teams, create the expectation, keep the the knowledge fresh and also identify where we have gaps and where we need to do additional work. Certainly coordination among all the financial regulatory agencies is, critical to our readiness. And I think John mentioned, the ongoing work that we do with key turning authorities, which is really important. And we also coordinate with staff on a staff level with staff at Treasury to make sure that the orderly liquidation fund, which is funded ex post and is, a different approach than what we use with the deposit insurance fund, that we have a staff level understanding of what it takes to make sure that we're ready to move that money timely, and that everybody knows what their job is to accomplish that. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about our cross-border engagement, and in CMGs and outside of CMGs, we have a lot of engagement with supervisory and resolution authorities around the world to make sure that we have, as much as possible, shared understanding of the steps that we might take, the steps that they might take, and that we talk about the work that we've done in, to keep those issues fresh and to keep those relationships fresh. And all of this really supports our readiness and keeps us busy while we're in the firehouse.
Keeps us busy while we're in the firehouse. I don't know what that means. This is what she's saying. You interpret this.
Next slide, please. So the topic here is transparency, and
okay, this is where the videos went viral, where people are like, should we tell the public? Okay, just listen to what they say. Okay, this stuff is all public to you guys.
We are very mindful that confidence is critical to the success of a resolution in any case and in every case, but particularly in this case where we would be exercising authorities for the first time.
Okay, exercising authorities means that they are taking over banks. The FDIC is exercising their authority. Go look up what it means when the FDIC needs to exercise their authority. It's when banks go insolvent.
And the key to confidence always is setting expectations. Do stakeholders understand the process? And it is being executed consistent with those expectations. So we have taken steps to build awareness and understanding, and are sort of looking for ways to continue to do so. So for instance, we've been very, very transparent about our Title I resolution planning work. The guidance is published, Q&As are published, public portions of the plans are made available to the public on the agency's websites. And our feedback letters are open to the public,
and that's what we're watching right now. They're saying, hey, we put this out there. Nobody's watching this stuff. Nobody's watching this stuff. I am. They put it public. They're getting ready for banks to go insolvent.
Also posted on websites. So it's an open process. And I think that there's a lot of information available there. Certainly, I've mentioned that we work with other regulators and regulatory authorities to have a shared understanding with those stakeholders. And in 2013, we published a notice in the Federal Register about the single point of entry approach to resolution, and to make that, that strategy that we had developed available so the public and other stakeholders would understand and be aware of that approach to resolution. We continue to talk about Title II resolution. There's been speeches about it. We talk about it in a lot of different venues. Some of them are in small group venues, and some like this one are open to the public and are a way for us to tell our story. But what we want to do and what we want to ask you about is, what do we need to do to better set expectations, to power our, our communications and improve confidence when the time comes?
Okay. What do we need? So she's asking for feedback on what they need. This is the FDIC, by the way. What do we need to do to provide feedback when the time comes? Listen to what they say. This is what went viral.
And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Susan Baker.
Aye.
Sorry, after her is the one that goes viral.
As Betsy conveyed, we've done a lot about transparency in terms of resolution planning. It's all out there on the website. What we want to think about and what we're starting to work on now is how to improve transparency about our execution plans for Title II resolution. We've been working on these for 10 years now, and we should probably be starting to say more things publicly.
So they've been working on this for 10 years, since around 2012, getting ready for this.
What do we want to think about today is what should we be transparent about now that would help improve confidence in the event that we're called to use our Title II authorities. And we've been thinking about this across, many dimensions.
So I want to make it very clear. I'm not saying banks are going insolvent, but what is this about?
First, we look at who we need to be transparent for. And we have a large number, a list on this slide that you can see. We've done a lot of work with policymakers and regulators around the world, has been said, and a lot of engagement with certain parts of the firm. So the slides on the right, we've probably done more on, but what do we need to be thinking about for the stakeholders, the general public, customers, counterparties, other people like that? We think about what message do these stakeholders need to hear, and it might not all be the same.
It's crazy to see Jay Clayton sitting right there.
And then we think about when we need to be transparent. And I know that there's going to be a temptation for people to say, FDIC should just lay it all out there. Say what you're going to do every step along the way. And that pre-commitment will help improve confidence. But we also need to be mindful of the need for FDIC to have operational flexibility to adjust to the specific facts and circumstances on the ground. Next slide, please. So this slide is some topics that we're considering, the what of what we need to be more transparent about. And so what we would like to hear from you is which of these topics or others that might not be on here, thinking about contracting authority, which I took off the slide and now maybe I shouldn't have. What are the things that would be helpful to get out in the public domain to improve confidence now? So some of the things we've heard about obviously are, what are the key decisions that the FDIC has to make? When would you decide the framework? Is it going to be, is Title I bankruptcy going to work? Or do we need to turn keys for Title II, which basically hinges on the need for liquidity through the OLF, I think. How do we decide the resolution strategy? Does the firm have enough capital to make an SPOE work? Or do we need to be thinking about an MPOE? Do we need to be more transparent about how we coordinate cross-border, how it would differ if we're a home or a host? For example, we get questions about planning for the bridge as well. Who's going to run this bridge? What assets and liabilities will go into it? And how will the FDIC oversee what's happening at the bridge and maintain that for a public confidence perspective as well? We're thinking about creditors. How do you communicate with claimants, including about their claims determination? How will the losses be allocated on the Dodd-Frank hierarchy, which is different than under FDI Act and under bankruptcy? And then how will the claimants be compensated? How does securities for claims process work? We mentioned that in the 2013 thing that Betsy mentioned earlier. We're also wondering if we need to be more transparent about some of the accountability mechanisms that we have as well for the general public audience. We are required to remove culpable management. How would we go about doing that? Do we need to re-emphasize that in the Dodd-Frank hierarchy that compensation claims are subordinated to general creditors and that prior compensation could even be clawed back if it did? And then finally, there's the funding mechanism. What part of that would be most helpful to boost confidence? I do think that the OLF and using it is the big gift. It's not a gift, but the big tool that we need in Title II to help provide confidence. But what do people need to know to really get that? How important is it to explain the rules and the mechanics for the OLF? How money will get from point A to point B? How would we use targeted guarantees to allay concerns about excess cash use? There's a lot of questions here. And so, there are a lot of things we've been thinking about, and what we want to hear from you today is what you think the priorities would be in order to go about setting expectations appropriately in public about how we would execute Title II.
So why would they need to be talking about this right now? Think about that. That's something. Why would they need to be asking for feedback on figuring out how do we communicate with the public? Why? If there's nothing wrong, why would they be doing this drill?
So that if and when we do have to have that announcement on Friday night, ideally Friday night.
If and when we do need to make the announcement on a Friday night, ideally Friday night. They always do it on Friday night, so you have the weekend to think about it, and then there'll probably be some sort of distraction.
That people are in a position to receive it, understand it, and say, yeah, that works. And we can see how this will happen. Of course, there will be doubters, but there's a lot of things going on. So with that.
First of all, I'd like to praise the FDIC for its unrelenting pressures to have more disclosure under the actual public.
So now I'm giving you context. These are the videos that are going viral right here over social. So now you have the full context of what they're talking about.
Reports, I think they have been very helpful. Second, I guess I am a bit pessimistic about your ability to communicate with the people who really need to know in terms of a crisis. And this is partly from my experience of teaching this stuff. There was a lot of interest just after the crisis. It's dwindled over time. And so people are sort of less and less interested in getting into the nitty gritty and some of the really interesting developments. So I would think your strategy ought to be to disclose as much as possible to people who professionally need to know about it. And that would certainly include the ratings agencies and the people within the banks who are responsible for these judgments, and simply have publicly available a place where people can go if they need to know more. Because we're dealing with a society where people are getting their information in tweets. There's just no patience, I think, for going through the elaborate and careful planning that has gone on. It should be there. It should be accessible when people need to know, but I don't think you have much hope of reaching a public that doesn't have a professional need to know.
It's your money, guys. But like you said, it's public, so we're watching it.
I completely agree with that. I almost think you'd scare the public if you put this out. Like, why are they telling me this? Should I be concerned about my bank? Like, my insurance company doesn't tell me what they're doing with my assets. They just assume they're going to pay my claim, right? I think you've got to think of the unintended consequences of taking a public that has more full faith and confidence in the banking system than maybe people in this room do.
Did you hear what he just said? A public that has more confidence in the banking system than the people in this room do. The FDIC. That's the part that's going viral.
That we want them to have full faith and confidence in the banking system. They know the FDIC insurance is there. They know it works. They put their money in, they're going to get their money out. So there's a select crowd of people that are in the institutional side. And if they want to understand this, they're going to find a way to understand this. There's a bunch of law firms represented in this room. There's a bunch of people who charge them by the hour a lot of money to explain this all to them. And it's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And they all have huge staffs. But I would be careful about the unintended consequences of starting to blast too much of this out in the general public.
So,
okay, we'll just leave it at that. We're going to go to the next video. That's the part that went viral. Now you have full context. Now I watched the whole meeting, every single bit. We're going to watch a little bit more, and then I'll show you guys some documents and we'll let you go.
Bank that the FDIC tends to handle routinely and swiftly. So just starting the challenges box, the first few here, generally speaking, relate to strategic options, and the latter get into operational challenges just in carrying out the resolution. But obviously, as touched on already, just from the standpoint of capacity, the capital and operational resources that would be needed, there are very few institutions that could acquire a large bank. And it'll be especially difficult at the time of failure on a compressed timeline. There's no minimum loss absorbency requirement for these institutions. Some of them do have long-term debt that could absorb losses, but there's no requirement. And that means that there could be increased costs, and it could limit the strategic options available to the FDIC particularly if the depositor class is impaired, franchise value might be destroyed. It might make it harder for bridge and sale strategies to pass the least cost test. They don't have a debt structure that supports a single point of entry type of resolution that's sometimes contemplated for these institutions. But without that structure there, that means entry at the IDI, which is, for these institutions, a very complex operating company. If we're using a bridge, that means that over the weekend, it'll involve the transfer of thousands of employees and a wide array of services, assets, and contracts to that bridge institution.
So they're saying the announcement will be made on a Friday and it'll all happen over a weekend.
For the weekend. I've noted the challenges with operational continuity, in addition to some services being outside the bank itself. They also just haven't fully addressed the impediments to maintaining operational continuity and resolution that some of the larger firms have, and to the same degree. So the next handful of challenges here, I know there are a lot of challenges, which is part of the message. Get into the receivership entity itself. So there's a large number of deposit accounts that we would need to handle at the time of resolution. For the largest banks, 10, 20, up to 40 million deposit accounts, and more complex account types than for smaller banks. So, pass-through relationships and things like that would be harder to work through. And then, of course, large portions of the deposit balances are uninsured, ranging from 40 to 50% for these institutions.
So 40 to 50% of deposits are uninsured in these institutions.
On average. And then, just other challenges around receivership management, the receivership entity that the FDIC would be responsible for. It'll depend largely on the complexity of the complexity and scale of the assets that are left behind in the receivership. It could be significantly simplified if we're selling the institution or using a bridge, and much is moving to that. I should just note that in the event that we have to undertake a liquidation where everything stays in the receivership, the operational challenges are quite daunting in that circumstance. The last two challenges here kind of touch on the path to failure and the point of failure. They obviously, they have more complex business lines, and the fact that we're going to need to make projections about valuations through the course of a bridge period makes our assessment of the potential cost of resolution at the time of failure more difficult. And then combine that with the fact that they're almost certainly going to fail due to a run on liquidity. There'll be an abbreviated runway, which will further reduce the time that we have to conduct valuations and to market the institution.
Okay, so they basically are worried about a run on the bank. Once the announcements are made on Friday, people will run the banks and it creates a liquidity crisis. Okay, so this documents are all going to be down below. Like they said, it's available to the public. I'm just sharing to the public what this is. FDIC and Financial Regulatory Reform, Title I and Title I IDI Resolution Plan. You can find your bank and you can go through the resolution plan. Every single bank is listed with a PDF. If you go to the PDF, this is Bank of America's PDF. There's a 33-page PDF. I'm going to show you Bank of America and Wells Fargo. In their payments platform, they have clearinghouse automated payment systems. They have to list all their payment systems, which one of them is CHAPS. I'm just going to show you some cool connections out here. CHAPS, Ripple's executive Marcus Threcher, appointed to CHAPS board. If you go over to Ripple, Ripple is has inside of Bank of America's patent. Ripple is inside of Bank of America's patent. Okay. This is Wells Fargo contingency plan for Title I to Title II. This is on page 24. This is their bankruptcy plan. I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just showing you this stuff is available for you to research. So this is the contribution target. He talked about diligence, the stress, the runway that they talked about in resolution. The runway is what they're worried about as the bank runs. When they make the announcement on Friday, everybody will try to run the banks and create a massive liquidity crisis. Okay. What I'm here to tell you, will not find this on the news. You will not find this written anywhere. That FedNow Services is going to be linking up with your local bank in March. Okay. This is another document down there that you will have February 21st, 2018. This is the Orderly Liquidation Authority of Bankruptcy Reform. You can go through that boring stuff. And this is the actual document that lady was presenting. If you would like to go to the FDIC website, which I'm going to give you the resource, you can go through all this stuff yourself. Okay. This is May 20th, 2021. This is a transcript from Jerome Powell, message on developments on U.S. payment systems. I'd highly recommend that you dive into those types of documents. So I'm just sharing this stuff with you guys. It's facts, figures, numbers, logic. This stuff is available to the resources down on the FDIC website. I've been telling people since 2020 that they need to get their shit together and they need to prepare and get mentally prepared physically and mentally and understand that we're going through the biggest shift in generational wealth and the biggest transformation from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. We're going from industrial to technical. The old archaic banking system is broken. It can no longer work. Our country is at 139% debt to income ratio. 33% of our debt is held outside the United States. Our country is almost bankrupt. So basically they have to borrow money to pay for your pensions. Since 1971, we've been on a fiat currency, which is basically fake currency. We've been a debt-based society, and debt-based societies work very well if policies are good, which they aren't, and if there is no greed involved, which there is. So we are now in a system where we're moving to on-demand liquidity, blockchain technology, Web 3.0, and your whole system is going to change by 2025, going into 2030. And there's a group of individuals that are investing in the speculative assets and technology that's going to change the world, that are going to be the new Bilderbergs and going to be the new Rothschilds. And it's not about not the money that's evil, it's the use of money that's evil, and we're using money for great work. So I love you guys. I appreciate you. Everything's down below. If you're still here, you're a true warrior, as we always say. Warriors, rise, get your shit together. Again, this is not financial advice. I would not make any moves. Make informed decisions based on the information that the FDIC is presenting to you.